I am so excited to bring on Meghan Weir this week. Welcome, Meghan.
Hi, I'm so grateful to be here with you, Heather.
Tell the listeners about yourself. Where are you from and what are you up to?
Yeah, I'm from Vancouver Island in Canada, the beautiful rainforest. And I'm actually a life coach for women. I really focus on self-love and empowerment, and I'm super passionate about what I do.
And Meghan and we met through a women's entrepreneur group in the summer of 16. So we've kind of been connected since then. I think it's awesome. I've seen everything you've been doing since then.
Yes, it's been quite the journey, and I'm just so grateful for everything. I'm so grateful to be connected with you, and yeah, to be here with you today. So thank you for having me.
Well, and the reason I brought you on, as we discussed previously, I kind of want you to give a little more background of, I know you had an eating disorder and what that brought you to, and realizing that you were paralyzed by fear, but now how do you deal with fear? So if you could give background on that.
For sure. Well, growing up, I was actually very connected spiritually, and it was a beautiful journey that I was on. And as life happened, some circumstances occurred, which actually got me, unfortunately, in a eating disorder for 18 years. So it became one of my biggest coping mechanisms to deal with all the stuff that I've been through in my life. And through that, as you can imagine, I became very disconnected. So although I was very disconnected, there was always that inner knowingness that I was meant for more, yet I was just riddled and paralyzed by fear. So my eating disorder really was my coping mechanism to drown out that fear of all the unknowns that I was experiencing in my life.
So was your eating disorder, you were so afraid of the unknowns, did you wouldn't eat, or you binged eating?
I was mainly bulimic, so binging and purging, but I also was anorexic also. So yeah, and unfortunately, but also fortunately, I'm very grateful for my eating disorder today. So, but I was very ill for about 18 years. So
Is that so? I've read in school and we learned about different eating disorders, but for you, is because you had so many unknowns, was your eating disorder because that was the only thing you felt you had control of in life?
yeah, it's really fascinating with eating disorders. Definitely, it was that need of control. I felt everything else in my life was out of control, and that was the only thing that I actually could control. And then it just became this beautiful love affair, and it was like my biggest security blanket. But yet it kept me safe. It kept me comfortable. Yet I knew inside there was more. I always say I was uncomfortably numb because I knew, my soul was whispering there's more to life, yet I was just so paralyzed by that fear of the unknown. What would my life look like without this eating disorder? What would my life look like without this career in nursing? What would my life look like with all these things? Because it was just my safe harbor. So I just chose to stay stuck there for so long.
What was the turning point? What clicked? What happened that you wanted to stop doing that, live more of a healthy lifestyle, and not let all those fear of unknowns rule you?
Yeah, well, it's interesting actually. When I graduated from nursing school, I did very well, and my dad asked me, "Why are you not applying for work?" And I was so paralyzed by that fear, and that's when it came out of the closet that I finally broke down, and I just said, I have this eating disorder, and I need to work on helping myself first before I can help other people. And so that's kind of where I slowly began to ask for help. My first counselor actually rejected me and said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you." So you can imagine the impact that that had on me. So, but again, I'm grateful for that experience because it's created who I am today. So it just led me down this path of healing and just trusting. So slowly I became more and more connected. And I just started to trust my journey. I seeked out so I did work with some counselors that really helped me. I was introduced to this incredible company that introduced personal development. So I really started to take courses and read books. But it wasn't until there was still that fear, that fear of the unknown. I was still in nursing. I was still knowing that it wasn't serving me to be in that career. But I just felt safe, even though it was just out of alignment for me. Does that make sense?
So was it the stability because you had the schooling and it was a paycheck and at least there weren't any unknowns? You knew you were going to work each day, and so it was safe.
Totally. I was all about safe. So my eating disorder was safe for me. It was what I knew. It was what I trusted, right? So I learned to not trust myself and not trust others. So it was like my eating disorder is what I trusted. So because I was so stuck in that place, I just was like, I'm just going to stay here. So that meant that I had friendships and relationships that weren't serving me. That meant I had a career. Although nursing is a fantastic career, it was not healthy for me. But it just kept me stuck. But I was actually introduced through this company just kind of what life coaching was all about. I didn't really know what it was. And everyone had always said, you'd make a great counselor, you'd make a great life coach. But I just like, oh no, I can't do that. Right. That's not for me. I'm a nurse, but I started working with my own coach, and that's where I truly had these incredible breakthroughs, where I was actually able to really face fear and head on and just kind of really work through my limiting beliefs and the ways that I chose to sabotage myself to keep me in that place of safety, although it was actually in a place of self-destruction. But I look at self-sabotage as more as self-protection, right? So I had all these things around me for a reason. And so it was just my form of protection. So, yeah.
Well, I know your whole movement is self-love. So was it through the coaching that you realized, okay, I got to go within. I have to take care of me. I have to stop letting fear rule my life. So what steps did you take?
Yeah. So because, as I mentioned, I was rejected by my first counselor. There was other circumstances and incidences that happened along my journey of back to healing that made me realize that at one point in my life, I felt like a complete alien. I felt so alone, misunderstood. And, I really just wanted other women to feel whatever they were going through. Maybe it wasn't an eating disorder. Maybe they didn't have trauma happen to them when they were younger. Maybe it was just that they weren't happy in their careers, or they weren't happy in their relationships, or whatever it may be. They just felt disempowered in their lives. So that's what really motivated me to really implement that self-care every single day, build myself up through working with coaches and, reading and taking courses and doing the inner work. But my jam is to ensure that no woman feels like she's alone on this journey. I get so lit up to assist women to really feel empowered in their life in all levels.
And so we've previously spoke about this you were paralyzed by fear, but then you told me now when you feel the fear, you realize you're on the right path. So how did you take that old form of being paralyzed by it, but now you're being fueled by it? Explain that.
For sure. Yeah. So as you can imagine, the path I just shared, it was very fearful and scary, right? Like it was like I was removing this huge blanket of protection and I was being exposed to the world. That was beyond frightening for me. But what I, whenever I feel that fear, I kind of reconnect to my old self of what would my life look like if I didn't embrace that fear and choose to work through that. And so I always stay connected. So, my main jam in life is like how can I get more connected in my life in all areas? So for me, it's if I'm feeling that anxiety, that fear arising, it's like, okay, I'm on the right path. This is actually a good sign that I'm moving in the right direction. So if I'm not feeling fear, I'm, perhaps I'm not on the right path, because I feel in order to get your life to the next level, whatever it may be, it's normal to feel that resistance. It's normal to feel that fear. And it's recognizing, okay, am I going to allow this fear that I'm feeling right now paralyze me and stay stuck in a world filled with limiting beliefs and self-sabotage and all that? Or am I going to choose to rise up and feel that fear and do it anyways?
So I think what you're also
that's what I
touching
choose to do.
Yeah, what you're also seem to be touching on is busting outside of your comfort zone. So if you're not out of your comfort zone, you're not growing, then you're not really living, right? You're just being.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you can relate, but I definitely felt like I was paralyzed by fear. Like I was living in this little bubble of self-destruction because I was paralyzed by that fear for so long.
So, and you talk about that you stay connected. Is it through meditation, yoga? What do you mean by staying connected?
Yeah. So I differentiate the feeling between anxiety and the feeling of fear. Can you differentiate that between the two feelings?
So for me, to feel anxious about something is, if I feel anxious, I tend to get tightness in my chest. If I'm feeling anxious about something or uncertain. For me, if I'm feeling fear, it's more of like an entire body and kind of like, I call it monkey mind. That's when like I just get, my thoughts go spiral out of control. For me, that's fear.
Yeah.
That's mine.
For sure. Yeah, and it's exact same for me. Like if I'm feeling anxious about something, it's a completely different feeling, similar to you. So for me to stay connected, like if I feel that anxiety come up, like I feel like I'm out of alignment. So I always go back to my morning routine, which is meditating. So whether it's for 2 minutes or whether it's for 20 minutes, I always ensure that I'm showing up for myself first, because life's busy sometimes. So I used to have this rule that if I didn't wake up at 5 a.m. and I didn't have my power hour of meditation and journaling and gratitudes at 5 a.m., then my whole day was ruined, right? That was the perfectionism in me. But now I wake up whenever I feel well rested. And whether it's I have, like I mentioned, that 2 minutes to meditate, or I have that 20 minutes to meditate, I do that first. And then I journal. And then I read or listen to a podcast similar to yours. That is my daily do. And then I always make sure to move my body, whether that's I hike every day with my dog, and then I go to yoga, I work out. So it's just moving my body. But that whatever connects me to, my soul source energy is what motivates me to stay connected.
So from your morning routine, I think it's very similar. I have my own as well, but I have found the power in having that morning routine. And for me, this whole premise of living a balanced life is creating that. It's a balance, truly it is. And it's a daily practice. I mean, I don't believe I'll ever master it, but that's what I'm here to practice it. But creating that, I call it the trifecta of mind, body, and spirit. So mind, that's when I try to quiet through meditation. Body, as you talked about, daily movement, whatever that may be. And then spirit, I think through meditation, because I can quiet, that's when I can connect, be in tune with.
Yeah, it's essential, and I feel if I don't do that, that's when that anxiety creeps in. And it's not fear. It's just like, hey, things are out of alignment right now. It's time to get back to your daily practice of serving yourself first before serving others. Because I don't know if you can relate to this, but I was always serving others. I was the biggest people pleaser around. So I would ensure that everyone around me was happy, yet I was so drained at the end of the day because I wasn't serving myself. So even if you have just 2 minutes or 5 minutes, just I can't stress how important it is to really serve yourself first. So.
Right. And actually, I went to a seminar a few months ago, but we did an exercise and it was just drawing 3 circles, a big one, a medium one, and a small one. The 3 categories were work, relationships, which could be friends, romantic, family, whatever, and then self. And 9 times out of 10, women especially, self is the last thing they take care of. And I'm all about, it's kind of like, and I've said this dozens of times. But when you're on an airplane and if you lose oxygen, the mask comes down and they tell you, put it on yourself first before you can help the person next to you. And I just believe
So
it's kind of like, yeah, if your cup isn't full, how can you spill over and help others? You can't. So
you can't.
Yeah,
No. And it's vital. It's vital.
Totally agree. I'm on board.
Mm-hmm.
So can you give, if you had to narrow it down, because you no longer are paralyzed by fear, but when you feel something coming on, how do you use that feeling to fuel you in the direction you want to go?
I just recognize that, again, everything that has happened in my life so far and everything that's happening in my life now and in the future is happening for me. So it's up to me to take that action towards those fears, because, some days, just be completely transparent, it's like that fear becomes so overwhelming. It's like, oh, life would be easier if I just go back to nursing. And it's like, no. Thanks, ego, but it's not, right? And so just recognizing, okay, like, who is that little girl inside of me that felt like that complete alien, and how can I serve her? So, because I know there's other women out there like me. So get over myself, because this isn't about me. This whole journey that I'm on, all these experiences that I'm going through, it's not about me. It's about how I can serve others through my own experience. So whenever it comes down to being paralyzed by that fear, it's like, okay, well, why am I making this about me right now? Right? So if I can take it off myself and recognize this is actually going to support and empower and motivate and ignite all these, whatever, for all these women, passions, their purpose, their soul purpose, whatever it may be, by me overcoming my own fear, well, then guess what? I'm stoked to do that. So
that is powerful.
But yeah, I always reflect back on that little girl who was me. It was just felt like a complete alien. So I just don't want anyone else to feel that way.
Good. I love what you're doing in your movement. So what I have for you now are some rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
And so you kind of just have to go with the first thought that comes to mind.
Love it.
Okay. What is a motto that you live by?
I'm not afraid I was born to do this.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is your go-to book?
Oh, my go-to book. That is a tough one. I have so many favorite books. I would say Sacred Contracts by Carolyn Myers.
I've not heard of that. What's that about?
Oh, read it. It's fantastic. It's about our soul agreement and we chose to come down here on this earth and learn all these lessons that we're learning. For me, it just takes the heaviness out of knowing all the experiences I've been through. It's just like, okay, I agreed to these lessons and yeah, read the book. It's fantastic.
Okay. And I want to kind of end it on, what is one piece of advice you would give to listeners?
Just be kind to yourself. The more that you can love on yourself, the more that you can speak love to yourself, the more that you can, fuel your body with loving and nourishing foods, just the more that you can serve yourself, the better.
Awesome. If listeners want to get in touch with you, where can they connect?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, as well as my website. So Meghan Weir on Facebook, Meghan Weir Self-Love Catalyst on Instagram. And my website is www.meghanweir.ca.
Awesome. And I'll include all that in the notes.
Awesome.
Meghan, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I love your message, and keep doing what you're doing.
My pleasure, girl. Thank you so much for having me.